So we know how zoning has historically regulated home-based businesses, but how does zoning regulate home-based businesses today? In this chapter, we're going to dive into that question. The irony of how zoning treats home-based businesses is that for all of the mythos surrounding the small business owner, all the glamour of entrepreneurship in the United States, the most accessible form of entrepreneurship is actually probably the most difficult. Zoning rules on the books today either make it outright illegal or throw up significant regulatory and permitting barriers to new home-based businesses, making it harder to start the new businesses that do go on to transform the U.S. economy. Let's take a look at some of those rules now. So here is a really giant detailed chart that me and a research collaborator worked on, surveying how home-based businesses are regulated today. There's a lot here. I would encourage you to pause the video and take a look at it. But generally speaking, what we see is that most U.S. cities blend these different generations of regulations. Some continue to use language about customary home-based businesses. Some explicitly permit or prohibit certain home-based businesses. Some require permits, others don't require permits at all. Some require permits only for businesses that have certain impacts. Some allow customer and client visits, some prohibit them altogether. Some allow home-based businesses to have employees, some don't allow any on-site employees at all. So let's look at some of the typical features of home-based business ordinances today. Your typical ordinance blends a lot of features from first and generation regulatory frameworks. For example, from that first generation, many ordinances will continue to explicitly list out sanctioned and prohibited home-based businesses. These lists are often discriminatory and somewhat antiquated. For example, in Nashville, the city actually banned home studios. Now that might have made a sense when noise insulation technology wasn't so great, but today in Music City of all places, many people can and do run home studios in their basements or in their attics without causing any trouble whatsoever for neighbors. That particular case actually embroiled the city of Nashville in extended and frankly kind of embarrassing litigation. Home-based businesses that aren't on one of those lists of explicitly prohibited or sanctioned uses often has to pursue a conditional use permit. This might entail sending out notice to all of the neighbors, having to attend a public hearing, having to spend potentially thousands of dollars on fees and attorney's costs, and then potentially not even getting a permit at all. Many home-based business ordinances today continue to broadly prohibit on-site sales or any type of dedicated equipment that wouldn't be typically found in a residential home. So what do I mean by that? That might prohibit certain pieces of technology like a 3D printer used as part of a home-based business. Or it might prohibit somebody from selling candles that they made in a spare bedroom to folks who come and purchase on site. Many current home-based business ordinances also continue to require permits above and beyond a standard business license. In many cases, these permits can be pulled the moment anybody complains. There was, of course, this very hilarious case in Texas where a lady was running a home daycare that abutted a golf course, and the golfers called the city to complain that the children were making too much noise and disrupting their golf game, and she had her permits pulled from her by the city. Again, these are very ridiculous, embarrassing fights that cities don't want to get into, and they really hurt people who are doing precisely the types of things that our community needs. Most ordinances continue to ban client or employee visits. So for example, as a business grows in a small way, you might want to occasionally have an employee come to the site. In most cases, that's outright illegal. Similarly, signs are often completely prohibited, as are operating out of an accessory structure, such as a garage. The incredible irony here being that businesses like Apple and HP started out of garages, and that's a core part of the mythos of the company. Everybody knows about the Apple garage. Ironically, though, in many Bay Area suburbs today, though, if you actually tried to start the next Apple out of your garage, the zoning enforcer could be out at your house in the next 48 hours. So what do these rules actually mean for home-based business operators? We know from survey data that actually having to secure permits or comply with complex local rules actually is something of a hurdle. Many businesses may simply not start if the operator knows that what they were doing would be illegal or require some costly permit or public process. Many may continue to operate, but they'll go underground, forever at risk of a neighbor complaining and having their business shut down, and unable to potentially secure capital because they can't actually list their home as their formal business address. This puts many home-based business operators in a very precarious position that ultimately stunts their long-term growth and blocks the production of the new great firms of tomorrow from forming. This deeply dysfunctional status quo, where most home-based businesses are likely technically operating illegal, stunts their growth and leaves entrepreneurs forever at risk of ad hoc enforcement. It also puts planners and code enforcers in the awkward and uncomfortable position of having to shutter legitimate businesses that likely aren't causing any harm to anyone. Again, pull up Google Maps in any residential area and just see all the little windows that pop up over these neighborhoods. How many of these businesses do you think went through the trouble of securing a permit? How many could secure a permit if they really wanted to? How many would continue to operate if they had to send notice out to all of their neighbors and attend a public hearing and pay thousands of dollars in fees? Likely not too many. The good news is that we can do better, and we are doing better. In the next chapter, I'll talk about 5 principles for home-based business reform.